Outer Orange.
Vanguard set 7 is considered to be one of the strongest metas going in, as we have basically a tier 0 deck, we don't have a ban list, and basically Bob is taking over the entirety of results going into this format. We are about to get this set, and there's so little discovery because there's so many decks out there that aren't even being tested because of how strong Bob is. So today I'm going to show you guys some other decks that isn't just the main decks that everyone's trying out, and that isn't Levedress, that isn't Raziel, and we're going to showcase that today. I'm going to show you guys one deck per nation, basically something that isn't super popular, something that did get support this set, and then I'm also going to show you guys one extra deck, something that we've recently got news about that I thought I'd showcase with you guys as a little bonus treat on top of these decks. So first we're going to start with the Argo Siren deck here. This is our Argo Siren for Strawa specifically, and this is a really cool deck. It's like a restanding Aquaforce order focused deck, and I'm currently in the middle of kind of figuring out the ratios for this deck, but basically the TLDR is you want Sirens in your deck, obviously. So here we have Sirens, and you work off of your bind zone. This one says during a turn, if your bind zone has one or more different tiding cards, she gets plus 5k. If you have two or more different tiding cards in your bind zone, all your opponent units gets plus 5k power instead. If all your opponent gets plus 5k instead of just her. So basically you get a 5k buff in between your multi-attack, which is really good. And then she says you can discard a card, choose a tiding card from your drop and put it in the order zone, which is also really good because then you can set up for your tiding that you want to recall out. And then she says when she attacks, you can counterblast one and then choose a tiding from your order zone and bind it. And then if your opponent's Vanguard is great, you can entry blast 3 and choose 2 instead. Basically, you want to choose specific targets, you want to bind them, and then they get special abilities, which then procs your restanding. So that's that. We have the ride line here. This one says when rode upon running the grade 1, you can reveal grade 3, and from your ride deck, search your deck for one tiding card, reveal, put your hands. So basically, it's a direct search, and then she also gets boost if you have her as a rear guard. And then we also have the grade 1, who says when this unit is placed from riding the 0, which is this one right here, the Rotalis, then you get to basically search your deck for a tiding card, reveal it, put it to your hand, shuffle your deck, reveal the Argo. This is a very similar archetype to how the Mordalian deck works, the undercover deck. Very similar style of like you search for your orders through your ride line by revealing what your grade 3 is. Basically, it's a very common thing. So basically this gets you set up. Also, this one has a grade 1, has a little bit of an extra power. This actually on the side isn't too bad either. It says when your unit is in combat, this unit is stood by cards ability. If you have Vanguard, the Argo Siren is card name, you can also stand her. So that's also pretty good. You get the Soul Blast stand her, and then she also can basically get the boost back. So it's also really good. Now the main deck, obviously we want Persona Ride. That's very important. We have this new tier Knight Dragon because he actually does work with the deck. It says when this unit is placed from deck or hand, if you have a Vanguard with Argo Siren's card name, you can he gets plus 5k, then you can also counterblast Archer Blast 3 and draw a card, which is also very nice. Then when he attacks, you may have him get 5k. If you do, retire him, but then you can get them back later. Inlet Pulse actually works in this deck because he is searchable. You don't need this card. If it's a little too expensive, you can probably bump up some other cards, but he is here as an extra draw engine since you do get your 4 to 5 attacks. Next we have the new tier dragon. This guy's really good. I'm actually thinking about bumping this guy up because he's just a free unit on the board. It says when your tiding is put in the order zone, if you do not have a rear guard the same card name as this unit, you can counterblast a call him out. And then he also says when he's placed on rear, put a tiding card from the bind zone to a drop, and he gets plus 10k power. So he's 20k, 25k with the front row, and then 35k on Persona Ride. Pretty good card overall. Also the fact that he calls himself out is really good. You know, this deck's a little counterblast heavy, so we do run the little counter charger here to kind of back it up. And I also recommend maybe buffing this up a little bit more. It might become important. So another thing to keep in mind. On the Persona guy, he gets 10k and then also gets 10k something else as long as your Persona Road. So also he gets very beefy. He's pretty played in like multi-attack decks a lot, so this is another really common card to see. I do run this as like a backup since he binds an order from the drop and you can call him out. He gets the order set up in your bind zone, so that way you have your tidings ready for her effect. This makes it so that way you can kind of skip a step with because she only binds one, and then she can also bind 2, but you can go around that by binding an extra one with him, which means you'll have access to these a little bit faster. So this is also kind of another route you can go. You can just go ahead and go through this route if you want to bind that way. It's also for unit on the board that you can use, and you can do this as early as possible. You can like pitch these cards and then bind them with him, and there's a lot of ways you can kind of go about it. So that's that. Next we have the Sino. She also says for counterblast, you search your deck or draw for one tiding, put it to your hand. If you search or shuffle your deck, if your opponent's great, she gets plus 5k. This is just good just to keep your engine smooth. Notice another counterblast, they're very heavy. And then we also have this guy to kind of help out. We have this Regalis piece. You could probably run something else here like Caliburn as well. I run this because I feel like you want units on the board, but you can also not run this and probably run like Caliburn or any other Regalis piece. I think all the Regalis pieces are really good right now, except maybe Forbadal is a little bit weaker unless you're on a grade 4 deck. I think that one's slightly not as good as you could comparison to some of the other ones we've been getting. We're also getting new ones with Leonor set coming out and the Jewel set coming out, so you got plenty of options. I will say some decks rarely, sometimes they prefer one over the other, but I feel like overall it's not too bad. Let's talk about the orders real quick because they kind of fuel the engine a little bit. This one says you can put the Soul Blast when this card is put into the order zone, so you should deck for a Tear Dragons. As I mentioned, you do have access to Tear Dragons, which is really cool because most decks don't have 2 archetypes, but this one does. Also, so when this card is bound from the order zone by the ability of your card with the Great 3 or greater, with Argo in its card name. If your opponent's Vanguard is Great 3 or greater, choose one of your Vanguards at the end of the battle this unit attacked. If this unit did not stand by card's ability this turn, stand this unit, increase or decrease its drive by 1. So basically you can have the Vanguard restand. Which is also really useful, so you get extra drives. And then we also have the grade 1. This one's also really good. This one says when it's bound by the card in the order zone by the ability of your Great 3 or greater Vanguard with our Arco's card name, choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. And then also you can play for Soul Blast. You can also put this in the order zone, check top 7, and choose up to 1 card from among them, reveal and put it to your hand. If it's a Titan card, or call it to a rear guard if that unit is a card with Argo Siren's card name. So again, just more tools to access your setup, and that's basically the deck. It's pretty cheap, and I mean like incredibly cheap. I just to give you guys a small example overall, I have a stack here of commons people gave me, and there's a bunch of sirens in here, so I already have like 60% of the deck right here, but built in person. And then also I placed a K obviously, so I have everything that's like a staple, and all I really need is just this. Like is all I need. And she's a triple R, so she won't be expensive. So this is a very cheap deck, a very good alternative deck to try out and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's that. I'm going to shut up about this deck. Let's go into the next one. We have Prison. I'm going to showcase Prison because the other one is like that like 16 grade 2 deck or whatever, and I feel like people would know enough about that deck's existence, so I actually picked Prison for this one. I don't do this very often because I'm actually not the biggest fan of Prison, and it's funnily enough, I actually used to play it back when grade 4s first came out, so I used to play the deck. But anyway, long story short, Prison got a new card, and it's this one right here. It's this new Welt Kolobi card, and she's actually really good. She says when she's placed on the rearguard circle, Andrew Blast 3, your opponent chooses a card from their hand. They may imprison it into the prison. If they deny imprison card, your opponent chooses 2 units from their drop zone and imprisons those stats. So basically, they either have to give up 1 card from hand, or they have to give up 2 cards from drop. Chances are they'll pick up the 2 cards from drop. Most decks don't really care about their drop zone that much, so they'll probably pick up from there. They get to choose, which means they get access to get them back, but that's 2 imprisonments. Right off the bat, it's also Energy Blast 3, so it's free. She also gets power. If there are 2 or more, she gets plus 5k power. She's also a little 15k beater early on, so I think this card's pretty good. I put her at 2. I'm just letting you know she exists. And then we also have the new Pride Cyclers that have come out in this set, and also this card, these are really good use to that way you can survive a little bit longer, so you can go into grade 4 and kill. Once you're grade 4, this deck gets pretty ridiculous. Like I mean like absolutely insane in my opinion. I think this deck's so strong on grade 4, especially now with utilizing all these new cards. They have access to Prison. This card that came out 2 sets ago is actually insanely good. She says when she attacks you with a Great 3 or greater Vanguard with Seraph's Note's card named Soul Blast, your opponent chooses a card from their drop and imprisons it, and she gets plus 5k power. But it's just another ability. It says at the end of the battle that this unit attack retired, choose one of your opponent's cards imprisoned in your prison and put them on their deck. If you do choose a card, you need to draw a card. So this is kind of like the little extra step where your opponent has to be careful what they imprison, because then you can bomb deck it. So depending on what they have, or say they only have like 2 cards in their drop and they're forced to imprison cards that they don't want to imprison, then you can just bomb deck it with her off of after using her effect. So just some things you can kind of synergize really well. I actually really like these cards. I wish I could bump them up. You technically could take out the Pride Cyclers and run these at higher copies, up to you. But yeah, Prison, I think this grade 4 is just so nuts. It's just so good. And then we have the Ride Fixer and everything to kind of help us get there, right? So overall really good. You could probably bump down the Prison if you want to up the Seraph Snow, if you want to up some other pieces. That's perfectly fine. I think it's a little risky, but you can do it. You have the grade 1 that helps you search. The rest of these cards are a little bit older cards, so I'm not going to go into them, but I just want to let you guys know that this deck actually isn't bad. I think in the meta we're going into, this won't be a bad pick either, as you have access to basically everything you need. You just have to live long enough nowadays. You can also bump up this card. This does help a lot into opponents like swinging for really high numbers, especially with like Raziel combos. You just have to be careful with the grade 3s like Charmnet and obviously Gabrielius. Aside from that, you can actually use this to protect yourself a little bit longer, since it basically is another perfect guard in your hand, and it goes around weird guard restricts as well, which is also really nice because you can intercept with her as well. So something to keep in mind, because it says when she's put in the guard circle, so basically you have access to a little bit extra perfect guards. You can bump her up if you want to go super safe, which is also also fine. But yeah, I think Prison is a really undiscovered deck right now. I think people have been kind of, you know, trying, and I definitely think that this deck is actually getting into a really good spot. There's probably better ratios than what I'm doing. I don't play this deck every single day like some other people do. I play this, like, I play into it more than I play it nowadays. I definitely don't own these cards anymore. I used to, but definitely look into Prison. I actually think it has some sauce, and Doji not being as prevalent right now makes this deck a lot easier to pilot, a lot easier to play. I will say if Doji ever gets unrestricted, I do think the power level of this deck goes down though. Next we have Triumph Dragon. Now Dragon Empire was really hard for me because, like I said, I don't play too much Dragon Empire. I've been really enjoying Gandiva. Gandiva got like nothing this set, even though it is actually a good pick, but I really want to pick something that specifically with support from this set. So I picked the Triumph Dragon, which is a trial deck. I'll be honest with y'all, I have not tried this, so it's very possible that there's nothing too crazy going on here. However, I took basically what I would consider like the good cards, and I kind of just threw them into the engine because it has its own cards. We got this new card here. It basically lets you get extra front row power, which seems really good. We obviously run the Triumph Dragon, gets you extra copies of Persona. We have ways to loop them back with this grade 1 right here, and actually a lot of the trial decks kind of follow a similar loop with these cards, where they have another card that they like to look for, which is this grade 3, and they just kind of all work with each other. And then this one also gets a crit too, which is also really good. It's a very pressure deck. It's a lot of retire and pressure. Like this guy gets a 5k to crit all the time. Basically, it's very consistent in terms of that. So you always have to be cautious of the Vanguard swinging. It can be very lethal. I put the blue OT in, but you can probably run the Dragon Empire one. You can run whatever OT you want, but they just got reprinted, so that's also really useful. Got this guy that brings himself back out. Marlene also has a card like this, and then we also have this guy that also increases your Vanguard's crit, or whatever unit attacks crit. So that's also really good. So you can buff stuff up, but you have to Persona Ride. But because this deck always Persona Rides, you're always gonna see it. So basically, it's just I tried to kind of here's some shield as well. I tried to kind of put, and then also I did talk about this great. I did talk about the great thing, but anyway, I kind of tried to put cards together that made sense. I also threw Shenri in here, but you could probably run like other cards too if you want to be a little bit more on a budget. Perfectly fine. But I kind of slapped some cards together. They all kind of made sense to me and kind of just put it all together. I think Triumph and like all the other trial decks are all like actually getting kind of good. Like they're not great, but they're getting there. So I thought I'd showcase this deck. Going to the next one, this is Alma Jester. I played this deck before this upgrade, which just came out for this set, and I thought this would be the best deck to talk about with all this kind of stuff. So basically, Strawa got a new form. She now has access to just kind of better set up her crits, because she also now checks for crits and Australias in her soul when she soul blasts. So you have better ways to basically get to your bind zone that isn't just critical triggers. Now you also count to grade 3s as well. And luckily enough, we have this grade 1 that directly finds Strawa copies for you. And then she also from the bind zone can re-ride with a Persona Ride. By discarding, so you can also, in case you don't have in your hand, if it's in your bind zone, you can just Persona Ride anyway, which is very consistent and useful. Other than that, we're running basically the same engine. I didn't put as many new cards in as some other people are probably running because I didn't really like them, but that's my personal opinion. And also, I'm still in the middle of kind of working through this deck right now. Like I said, these are just early decks. This isn't like, you know, they're not like, this isn't like this is the only version of deck you can play. You can definitely experiment with these and kind of toss them around, especially if you own the cards. Kind of mess around with it a little bit. Like you don't need to run the Shenri clone, but I chose to run it because I think it's a useful card. But that's just me. I like early aggro, and as I'm sure other people do, hence why I'm running this card, the one that says the discard, and kind of this is a very aggressive card. Stacks. It's a very aggressive card, but you lose your hand really fast, you know, stuff like that. So anyway, that's basically this version. I also run the crit guy. This guy basically when he's restored, he gets a crit. He's very, very lethal and very good in my opinion to be running. I see some lists running like 1 or 2, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, the card's kind of cooking. But also running the protection guy. You can replace this with a bunch of other grade 1s. I'll probably put some up on the screen right now. There are quite a few that you can run over this card, so you don't have to mandatory run this because I know this card went up in price. It might have gone down by now, but last time I checked, it went up. You can also buff up Quinn Liu. Quinn Liu is just insane. It just says guard restrict. Very annoying card, so you can run that. And also we're running the order card. I've seen a lot of us run this at like 3-4 copies. It seems to be like it's important. I think the big thing is the fact that you get to choose a bunch of triggers and put them from your drop into soul, which is very consistent. It keeps the consistency going, but you don't get the crit, which kind of sucks because you need to be on mask. So there's like the downside to that. So that's basically it with this deck. Like I said, Australia is just all about pressure on the Vanguard while restaying a rear guard. She also pushes crits usually on her Vanguard. Also big pressure deck basically. The grade 2s also has a crit on it, and sometimes numbers get obscenely high. Also she has a couple conditions. She has like 1 or more, you retire rear guard, and your front row gets plus 5k, which is really good by the way, because you can do that in your first ride, which is nuts. So and then she also also gets a crit and the drive, so she's a triple drive. And then for the that's for 3, and then for 5, you choose one of your guys to restand it. You'll usually get there, but it is a little tough sometimes. So that's basically it. The next deck I want to talk about is the Hound deck. Now this one's a little bit more popular. I definitely could have chose Lyle or Sarah or whatever Cerulean guy, but I chose to pick this one because it's a little bit cheaper, aside from the Saragons. So I thought this would be interesting. You can also mix and match with a couple different things, but I decided to stick it out with this guy. So this is basically the Hound deck, where you basically just call a bunch of your Hounds and you search your deck for your high beasts. She lets you have multi-attack on the back row and then be able to boost and go for big numbers. From what I heard, this deck is a little bit of a draw issue, and that's mainly I think that's something that's kind of holding it back. But you basically have the engine of getting through finding all your Hounds as fast as possible and just kind of seeing a board. You basically just, I hear it's very consistent. I personally haven't tried it out yet, but it's actually on my list of decks to try, and probably just putting Razel for the side probably for the rest of my life. I'm kind of tired of that deck. But anyway, my favorite card is this one. I just think it's really pretty, but also she checks topside for a Hound, and if you don't find it, you get to counter charge, and she also soul charges, and if your opponent's greater, and you have 2 back row high B, she also gets 10k power. Just a really, really pretty card. Also just really cool. You have a bunch of Hounds in this deck, as you can see here. You got back row center circle. With this unit attack, you can your opponent has to guard with 2, so she's a little guard restrict, and also it has extra shield on top of that. We have also the other Hound, which is this one right here. This one placed, if you get the soul charge or counter charge, and then for the back row, you can, if you attack from the back row surrender, you also get 10k instead of 5k. So it's also just a little buff guy. And we also have this new grade 3 dude who also gets a crits, which is really nice. And then so there's also that. So he's have a little bit of pressure, some multi-attacking, some spamming, stuff like that. So he's pretty good. Now I saw a list running this card, and I'm really, really big fan of this card, because since you're going to be restanding your dudes anyway. This one says you choose 2 units, and during the turn that this unit is boosted, this unit gets plus 10k, and then if you have 5 or more units, you draw a card. Now because this deck always creates a board out of nowhere, you're basically always gonna have the condition to draw a card, which I think is really useful. It's only an energy blast too, so you can utilize on it, and some cards energy charge you cards anyway, so you can kind of get there using this card. So I'm a big fan of this card. I recommend it. I think that this card is very slept on. A lot of people talk about this card. I feel like this is like an insane card in general. Just 10k to 2 dudes is really big, and then you get to draw on top of that, and it's only an energy blast 2 to play, so we're also really good. So yeah, check out Hound. I think it's pretty cheap and affordable. I think the Saragons were the only thing that's hurting it in terms of price. Army is probably the one I'm excited for the most, because this deck actually has a lot of sauce now. I am running the price that goes in here, but you actually don't have to. There's space to run other cards, so just bear with me here. Now keep in mind, I don't think this is optimal. I actually think I can optimize it, but it's definitely a good starting point, at least with the main cards you have to grab, and then you can kind of go from there. So basically Marlene is a bouncing deck. You bounce a card, call a card. That's like her main thing. On top of, she's also a trial deck, so she also has the ability where she counterblast or just a copy for persona and gets the extra power on top of that, like all the trial decks do. And then her ride line basically searches you copies of cards, and then also lets you bounce cards. Very, very cool engine if you're really big into bouncing cards. We have this Crispiana here, or not Crispiana, sorry. This is Breastbean, which works with kind of similar to the Triumph Dragon, where you have a grade 1 that also works with it, which is, I believe, this one. And this one right here, this one has the same, almost kind of the same thing as the other Triumph Dragon, just a little bit different in terms of like what they're doing. This one also calls itself out and gets like the energy charge, and you can also put in a soul and then choose a Respino, reduce its cost. So basically Respino is free, she has power, and then she also can draw you cards, which is also really useful. We have this new card right here that just came out. This one's really good. We actually already have a card like this, but this one's specifically from Marlene. She says when another unit is placed on your rearguard by your Vanguard's ability during the battle phase, you can put her in a soul, give your Vanguard plus 5k, and if you have a grade 3 or greater Marlene, you can counterblast, draw a card, choose 1 grade 3 or less card from here to call it out. So basically you can call it back out the Respino, and then the Respino will proc with like the grade 1, and you have like a whole engine going basically off of that. So yeah, this is the new card that came out. She's really good. And then we also, like I said, have the Pride Cyclers. You can basically bounce them back to your hand and keep utilizing them over and over again, but you don't have to place them. But because it's Bermuda, you're usually placing from hand anyway, so these are just very, very good in there. We have this other card that also came out kind of recent. This is also an 07 card, so it's just she's placed in the front row, and you have a great there, greater Marlene. You can soul blast, choose one of your other rearguards and say calm is and stand it. So basically whatever you're boosting with will be stood, so it gets an extra power that way. This is the power buff girl. This is the girl that just gets power whichever she's placed. And then we have some intercept to protect ourselves, just a little bit of she gains intercept, also has 5k shield, so she's just a 10k shield basically. You can buff her up if you want to. We got the Keck, so this is a card that sends cards back as well, like Persona's back. There's actually another one. I don't know which one is better. It's like every single trial deck has these basically. I don't know which one's better. I'm trying this one out right now, but neither one's better. And I talked about this card already. This is basically the one. It's a promo, so this is probably the most expensive part about the deck is this promo right here. It is $6. It was really cheap. Nobody cared about it, and now suddenly everyone cares about it, so it's kind of expensive. Also, I run Caliburn and fronts and other stuff. I think you draw a lot, or significantly enough to where you don't really need the draws, but you can run the draws if you're a little bit fearful of your hand depleting really fast. That's basically the deck. Like I said, said, it's just basically make a board, bounce it all back, do it all over again. Sort of the setup, and restand your dudes, have good pressure, good power, and just go face. So that's kind of the point of this deck. So that's Marween. And again, I'm not showing it at Strawa or whatever, the lock girl, because everyone already knows what that deck does. Last but not least, I want to showcase one more deck because we just got the announcement of the new manga promo, which is basically pretending to be this one right here. So we have the new manga promo, which means the Strawa, I don't know how to say this deck. I call it Strawa, but basically Strawa got new got the promo, which is very useful. That card is in general just really good in Stakea, but especially it's really good in here. We don't have the grade 1 yet, but that's where I'm pretending like to be this. I'm just putting mushrooms here for early aggro. You could probably run something else that's like an early aggro card over this. In all honesty, I'm just running them because I don't know, I just like mushrooms, I like soul and all that kind of fun stuff. But I actually think this deck is very viable. It's already almost there. It just has a little bit of issue of being a little slow sometimes, and sometimes you just don't kill and then you die because of it. But the codexes are actually really strong. It's really awkward guarding, and the crits restanding pressure is insane because this deck just restand stuff with crit power on it, and it just gets so massive. So some of these numbers get so insane. So basically this card stands a card, and then this card lets you stand another card, and it gives a crit as well. So having one rear guard swing for usually pretty high with the crit is very brutal. Basically, I think this deck is definitely on its way to being playable. I think this is a very underrated deck, and I want to showcase you guys since we are getting the manga. It's going to be in June, so we're getting it pretty soon. I think it's June if I remember correctly. We're getting it kind of soon, so I figured I might as well showcase this deck as well as part of the little fun decks that you can try out. And that's basically everything. I hope you guys enjoyed all the cool decks. You have all the codes up above to try out, and also I'll just have them somewhere on this video so you guys can try out all different cool stuff that you can do. I think there's a lot of fun stuff to explore. We'll say this deck has a lot of trial, this set has a lot of trial deck support. So if you're big into all the trial deck cards, there's plenty to do here, especially if you have the promos. You've been collecting them over locals events, whatever the case may be. You have a lot to work with because all the decks got a buff. Basically, they're not amazing, but they got a buff. I think Marween is definitely the strongest of the bunch right now because of the Pride Cyclers. The Pride Cyclers and her just work really well. In general, the Pride Cyclers for Lyrical are also really good, hence why they're super expensive. And something else I want to note, Marween is really cheap because it runs very little generics. So it's a little fun fact, if you need to play for Lyrical Cup or whatever, you can also utilize Marween since she doesn't run almost no generics. So you can just run the Pride Cycler, spend the money on that, and then you're good, basically. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it was informative. Let me know below if there's any other decks that I missed. I obviously missed a couple like Lyle and a couple other ones. Let me know below if there's any decks that you think are not shining enough this set that you think should shine. Let me know below how you feel about those. So like and subscribe. 50cards.shop, code orange if you need any goodies. And also, he has a bunch of stuff. We have the new set obviously dropping. Got Shadowburst, got a bunch of other stuff. But also, I am officially also affiliated with BCW Supplies. So also, if you need supplies, such as storage places and storage stuff for your cards, you can also save a bunch of money by using my code orange10. You can save yourself a bunch of money. I'll have that also on the screen here. And then guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, I really appreciate all the comments and all the support. Can't wait for more. So peace out. Das Vidania. I'll see you guys in a future video. Bye.